Welcome.
Welcome to the Everything Podcast. I'm your host, Chuck Manity. And in today's episode, we are going to be covering Love, Death and Robots. Season 1, Episode 10. It is called Shape Shifters and it aired on March 15th, 2019 with a runtime of 16 minutes. This one got a little bit of a higher IMDb rating as compared to The Dump, which was the previous episode. We got 7.4 out of 10 with 17,000 reviewers. So this is a good episode. So the synopsis: deep in Afghanistan, two Marines with supernatural powers face a threat from one of their own kind. Great premise, and you will see so in a little bit. But the director, Gabriella Penaccioli, the writers are Mark Cluse, Philip Gillette, Tim Miller, and the stars are Graham Hamilton as Decker, Adam Bartley as Sabisky, Jim Peary as Master Sergeant, James Horan as Major Rayner, and Iki Amadi as Platoon Sergeant. So, just did you know, the trivia, Shapeshifters is based on a story on the use of shapeshifters in warfare by Marco Cluse. The goofs in this episode: when the flag is raised to half-mast, it is first brought to the top, then lowered to half-mast, not just raised to half-mast as shown in the end. So there's a bit of a goof for you guys. But without any further ado, let's get right into the review. So, take two. So you see the Netflix logo and the title sequence. So it opens up with what looks like a desert landscape, and then you see a soldier walking barefoot. There is a convoy, and the convoy breaks immediately when the main character, which we'll announce in a few seconds, the main character smells something, hears something, a main character gets shot, and the reason why I'm not telling you just yet, there's a reason for it, but the main character gets shot, and immediately his eyes go from his beautiful blue baby blues to what looks like an auburn kind of an auburn kind of color on his eyes, and you can see obviously he's not human. So the main character, we haven't named as yet, his eyes are a golden color. He can look forward like a periscope or a telescope or something. He can see far in front of him, and he can see who's shooting at him at this point. And whoever's shooting at him, they shoot at him and he dodges the bullet. So he is a paranormal character at this point. I have to say, before we carry on with the review, the graphics and the CGI and the animation is fantastic. It is absolutely brilliant. Do yourself a favor, watch this episode, it is amazing. So the guys that shot at the main character, which we haven't named just yet, but we will, don't worry, got shot in the leg, and the tanks that were with him have now shot the reciprocal shots that are coming at them. They've shot that whole house, the mini house thing, down to the ground, and then it goes to a shot with all the people eating. So what looks like Sergeant Miller, when they come to have what looks like Sergeant Miller is not very happy with the shapeshifters, let's call them that at the moment, sitting at the same table as them. He's not very happy with them sitting at the same table. Sergeant Miller calls them dog soldiers, and this is for an absolute reason, which you will see a little bit later. One of the militants does not take lightly to the dog soldiers slur, and he says that he will rip his arm off and beat him to death with it. And as they come up from the table, everyone jumps up, and the person who made the threat is sitting very comfortably in his sitting position. What you see now is the person who made the threat is churgling. He's making a grrr sound, which is like very much like a werewolf or a dog, whatever the case is, and you see his teeth growing as he's making that threat. Sergeant Miller walks away with about 3 or 4 of his Coronis, and they spit at what is now the dog soldiers, let's call them that at this point. There's a slight scene of them busy gymming with huge tires and pushing a chest press, and Sabisky gets called into action. There's a slight moment with Sudisky and Decker, and Decker says to Sabisky that he needs to protect himself, and Sudisky has a big moment where he says, well, they need to protect themselves against me. Decker then obviously warns Sabisky, like, hey, listen, you need to protect yourself as much as you can. Decker is sleeping in his bunk, and Decker then hears a whole bunch of firing squads, bombs, etc., happening. And what is really cool in the scene is his eyes are a very, very light shade of blue, as you'll see on the screen at some point. But that light blue just suggests that he is not human, obviously, and he is going to investigate what is going on. So one of the higher ranking members tells him that he cannot go to where the bombs and guns and all that stuff is going on, and the 2 of the higher ranking members tell him he cannot go there. He said he can make it there in minutes, mere minutes, and the other people will not make it within hours. So they give him the green light to make it up there, where he can obviously look after his compatriots. So you see Decker running towards where the actual fight is happening, and Decker jumps over a wall of some sort, and he sees a lot of dead soldiers, and it's all from like his point of view, which is really cool, by the way. So what you see is him running towards the wall, jumping over the wall, and seeing all the soldiers that have passed. It is really great. It is so amazing. And let's continue. What you see is a whole bunch of soldiers being mortally wounded with guns through their bodies, people being mutilated in a whole bunch of different ways, whatever the case is. So what he's doing is going through this whole situation and just going through it and seeing everyone in what is a horrible situation. What you need to notice about the scene is he's walking. Every single soldier up until now has boots and a whole bunch of gear on them. He is walking with very, very basic militant attire and zero shoes. He's walking barefoot through this whole thing. And obviously, because he is a shapeshifter of some sort, like that is what he's doing, or the reason why he's going through this without boots. But you definitely get the effect that the reason why he's not wearing boots is because he's a total badass. There's a lot of the times when he's walking through all of his teammates you can see they've been totally mutilated by someone or something, and a lot of the times you see his eyes glaring or like shining in the light, and it is absolutely gorgeous, like, because you know that he's not human, and this is what sort of placates to that moment where he isn't exactly human, and he's running through like a completely destruction crazy moment where he has this crazy eyes shining through the light, and you know for a fact that he is strong, he is amazing, and he is not human. So Decker finds his friend Sabisky. His face is absolutely mauled to the nines. It doesn't look good, and this is obviously the moment where he decides to, because this is, imagine this, like one of your best friends who you love to death is mutilated in the worst way possible. His face is, you can recognize him because he's your friend, but this person who is your best friend, the only person who would possibly recognize him is you, and his face is completely shredded, and I can only imagine the anger that he feels at this given moment. So let's continue. So one of the higher generals comes to a room where Decker is. This is after all the aftermath of the soldiers getting absolutely mutilated, and the higher up says to him, "Hey, what are you guys worth?" Right? Decker's response was, "I've got the scent. I will find exactly who has done all of this." The high up says that he wants him alive, but you get the opinion that Decker does not want the same. Decker is walking through what looks like an Arab town. He sees a whole bunch of people that look miserably poor, and he's looking at them face for face because he's trying to find out who killed Sabisky. He then has a smell, and as soon as he has a smell, you see a very, very old Arab gentleman with what looks like milky eyes, and at this point you can kind of almost anticipate that this is the person, this is the antagonist. You know it the minute you see his face, and we'll put it on screen, don't you worry. The minute that antagonist comes on screen, he just has a little smirk, a little smile, and you know that this is going to be the brawl of brawls. One of the high ups asks Decker if that person is here, Decker lies and says no, he's not here, but he knows with obviously smelling, because they are shapeshifters, they are sort of like a werewolf, a consulate, whatever the case is. But you know that Decker knows that that is the person that hurt his friend, which is like a setup for later. Just wait for it. Decker then runs out of the army base, and he's completely nude, obviously running to fight whoever is going to come. He's a shapeshifter, so if you wore clothes or if you didn't, wouldn't make a difference. He's running totally in the nude, ready to fight whoever has hurt his friend. He comes onto what looks like a little cliff of some sort. He's busy smelling to see who is there and ready to fight whoever is there. But wait for it. He's walking around in the dark to see whoever is going to appear, and lo and behold, the person that he smelt in the little village is exactly the person who hurt his friend. And this person is in the nude. Both of them are in the nude, which we can't unfortunately show on YouTube, but that person who is in the nude is sitting on the top of a cliff. He is an old gentleman. When I say old, he's not like 50. This guy looks like he's about 70, 75 years old. So, as he comes over the cliff, he sees the older gentleman open his fist to pull down the dog tags. And that dog tag is almost a mockery to say, listen, I've killed your friend. And yeah, so let's see what happens next. So what the older gentleman at the top of the hill with the dog tag does is he throws the dog tag towards Decker, almost to mock him, which is, at this point, you know this is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. The old guy starts to, his skin starts to dissipate and he turns into a werewolf. So it's such a weird scenario because it's not like a normal werewolf situation. So what happens is, as soon as his body's going bigger and turning into the werewolf, he's ripping off the human skin. So obviously when they turn into a werewolf, the human skin gets ripped off, and when they turn back, they don't have to rip off that skin. But it is such a crazy scenario. If you have to see it on screen, it is really cool. So as he's growing bigger into the werewolf, he's ripping off that skin. And I know I'm kicking a dead horse, I do apologize, but it is so cool when he's going bigger that he rips off his human skin, that form is now dead to him, to some sort of. Decker is midway from turning into a werewolf when a second werewolf, obviously a person that is part and parcel of the old man werewolf, attacks him from the side. So he's mid-werewolf, so he's not full werewolf at this point, and this person is a full werewolf attacking him from the side. He then, Decker then gouges his eye out, but he's still, I would say, 50% human. He hasn't got into his werewolf form, but he has got the better of the werewolf that had bamboozled him from the side. Decker then hits that werewolf with a rock, and you see a lot of teeth flying in the air. So he's obviously hit a few of these werewolf teeth out. Decker then finds himself at the top of a rock face, and the two, because obviously the person that was originally wanting to fight him was an old guy, and there is a young werewolf at the bottom with the old gentleman trying to fight Decker. So it is now Decker versus 2 werewolves. There is a monstrous fight that ensues. I will put as much as I can on the screen for YouTube, but it's not going to be all of it because it is very gory. Do yourself a favor, go and watch it. It is a great fight scene. There is a whole bunch of things that gouge out from Decker's arm, and he has only one arm to fight the 2 werewolves, and he lands up beating the 2 werewolves with one arm, which is fantastic. You have to go see it. So without explaining the whole fight, how it ends is Decker with the old wolf, and he puts his mouth completely over his mouth and bites pretty much his whole face off. So what is crazy, as soon as a person dies as a werewolf, they go into the human form, and whatever was injured in the fight, obviously those things come part and parcel. So if your nose was broken or if your arm was bitten or whatever the case is, those will replicate into human form, which is a lot of fun to see, like, because I mean to a certain degree what the werewolves situation was injured, and to see it in the human form, because the forms are completely different to a certain degree, but when it swaps over to the human form, it's a lot of fun, I guess. Like, maybe it's just me, but it's a lot of fun to see what was injured in the human form, because the forms are, yes, they are the same, 4 legs, mouth, eyes, etc., but the shape of it is very different, and it's a lot of fun to see. Maybe it's just me, the injuries that are part and parcel of the werewolf form as compared to the human form. After the crazy fight, back at base, Decker makes his way into the base, and he is looking absolutely shabby. His left arm is almost completely shredded. His abs, his eyes, his left eye is closed. His left part of his mouth is completely shredded. So he walks in, and they weren't very forthcoming. So all the military guys that were part and parcel of his team were not very forthcoming. I think I made mention of it to a certain degree in the beginning, but it's very important at this piece. So the minute he's making his way, obviously having retribution for a fellow army man, everyone that saw him coming in automatically had a certain amount of respect as soon as he came in, which is absolutely beautiful. Decker goes to a few gentlemen that are in body bags, one who is Sabisky, which is his friend, and Miller comes to him and says that you are not a soldier, you're an animal. And Decker says to him, he pulls off his dog tags and he says that I am not an animal and I am off your leash. He picks his friend Sabisky up in his body bag and he starts walking out of the base, and the guys let him go outside. It's a pretty sad moment because you see him basically walking and carrying his friend out into the wilderness, and that wilderness is obviously where the army men are too scared to go, and he puts his dog tags over a rock. Sabisky, that's his friend. He puts Sabisky's tags over a rock, and he says that you are my friend. And he has a place of burial, and Sabisky has an optimal burial situation, which is nice because originally that didn't look like that was going to happen. From Sabisky's burial ground, you see it reverses, the shot reverses from the mount that Sabisky is buried, and that is how it ends. So that is the end of this episode. So if you liked the episode today, please do comment below. If you liked the review of the episode, please do comment that as well below. Ben has some really cool stuff, so please do check the previous episodes to see exactly what the Everything Podcast is up to. But without any further ado, that is that for today's episode. So if you did like today's episode, please do like, share, and subscribe. But that is it for today's episode of the Everything Podcast. Goodbye.